Right now, the chatbot you've been paying for might be the loser. Google just dropped Gemini 3, and on a whole stack of public benchmarks, it's sitting above OpenAI's GPT 5.1. If you've been Team ChatGPT out of habit, that's a real moment to stop and ask a simple question. Which one of these actually wins for you today? Not next year, not in some lab demo. Today, on the phone in your hand. Because the answer isn't as obvious as the headlines want you to believe, and there's a catch nobody's putting in the title. So here's what actually happened. Google announced Gemini 3, its newest flagship model, and rolled it straight into the Gemini app and search. Alongside the launch, Google published a bunch of benchmark results, and on several of the big ones, Gemini 3 comes out ahead of GPT 5.1, OpenAI's current top general model. We're talking tests for reasoning, math, coding, and understanding images and video. Google's framing is basically, we're back on top. And this matters because for a while, OpenAI had been setting the pace. Google looked like it was chasing. Now the leaderboard just flipped, at least on paper. But before you switch apps, let's talk about what a benchmark even is, because that word gets thrown around like it means everything. A benchmark is just a standardized test. Researchers hand the model a big pile of questions, math problems, coding challenges, reading tasks, and count how many it gets right. Think of it like the SAT for AI. A high score tells you the model is sharp on that specific type of question. What it doesn't tell you is how the thing feels to actually use every day. And that gap between the test score and real life is where this whole fight gets interesting. Here's how Gemini 3 pulls ahead in plain English. Modern models don't just spit out the first thing that pops into their head. They can reason step by step, working through a problem the way you'd scribble on paper before writing the final answer. Google says Gemini 3 got noticeably better at this deeper thinking, especially on hard math and logic. It's also built from the start to handle text, images, audio, and video together. So you can show it a screenshot, a chart, a chunk of a video, and it treats them as one conversation instead of separate uploads. That's the real shift. GPT 5.1 works on a similar idea. OpenAI built it to think harder on tough questions and to sound warmer and more natural in normal chat. It's fast, it's polished, and millions of people already trust it for everyday stuff. So this isn't a dinosaur versus a rocket ship. It's two extremely capable models, both doing the reason-then-answer trick, and Gemini 3 just happens to be edging it out on the test scores Google chose to publish. Notice that phrase, the scores Google chose to publish. Keep that in the back of your mind because it's about to matter a lot. So why should you care about a scoreboard fight between two giant companies? Because you're already living inside it. If you use the Gemini app, Google Search, or an Android phone, Gemini 3 is quietly showing up in the tools you touch. If you use ChatGPT for work emails, homework, coding, or planning, GPT 5.1 is the engine under that. When one gets smarter, your daily results change without you doing a thing. If you're getting value out of breakdowns like this, do me a favor and hit subscribe, because I track this stuff so you don't have to reinstall 5 apps to figure out what's best. Let's get practical, because benchmark charts don't help you at 11 p.m. when you've got a task to finish. Where does Gemini 3 tend to shine? Anything that mixes media. Feed it a long PDF, a spreadsheet, a screenshot of an error message, or a chunk of video, and it's built to chew through all of that at once. It's also tightly wired into Google's world, so search, docs, and Gmail connections feel natural. If your day is drowning in documents and images, That combination is genuinely useful. But it's not the whole picture, and the next part is where a lot of people get surprised. Because GPT 5.1 still has real strengths that a leaderboard won't show. For a lot of people, it just feels better to talk to. The writing comes out more natural, the tone is easier, and OpenAI has spent a long time smoothing out how it holds a conversation. There's also a giant ecosystem around it. Custom GPTs, tons of third-party apps, plugins, and workflows that people have already built their whole routine around. Switching all of that over to a rival isn't free, even if the new model scores a point or two higher on a test. Comfort and habit are worth more than most benchmark charts admit. Now the honest catch, and this is the thing the headlines skip. When a company launches a model, they pick which benchmarks to show you. Google is going to lead with the tests where Gemini 3 looks strongest. OpenAI does the exact same thing. So a clean sweep on a launch slide doesn't automatically mean it wins every task in your real life. Independent testers and everyday users are the ones who'll sort out the truth over the coming weeks. Early scores are a signal, not a verdict, which raises the obvious question. Who actually loses if Gemini 3 is really this good? The clearest loser here is complacency. OpenAI had gotten used to being the default answer when anyone asked which AI is best. Gemini 3 puts real pressure on that story, and pressure is good for you. When these two shove each other, prices tend to drop, free tiers get more generous, and features you'd have waited a year for show up in months. The winners are regular users and developers who now have two serious options fighting for their attention. The people who should worry are the ones betting their whole business on one model never being beaten. There's another quiet winner you might not think of: Google's own products. Gemini 3 isn't stuck in a chat window. It flows into search, into workspace, into Android. So a better model means better autocomplete, better summaries of your inbox, smarter answers when you Google something. For a huge chunk of people who never open a dedicated AI app, this is how they'll actually feel the upgrade. It just arrives, baked into stuff they already use. You don't download it. You don't ask for it. One morning your phone is a little sharper, and you may not even notice why. So how should you actually decide right now? Try both on your own stuff. Take a real task from your week, a messy email you need to write, a bug in your code, a document you need summarized, and run it through Gemini 3 and GPT 5.1. Whichever gives you the answer you'd actually send is your winner, full stop. Benchmarks can't do that test for you. Your work is the only benchmark that matters. And here's the part that surprises people the most when they try it. The two models often disagree in ways that are actually useful. Ask them the same tricky question, and you'll frequently get two different angles, two ways of framing the problem. Smart users are starting to treat that as a feature, not a bug. Run the important stuff through both, compare, and take the best of each. You're not picking a team. You're using competition to double-check your own thinking. That's the move most people miss, because they're stuck arguing about who's number one when the real advantage is having two strong opinions on tap. Here's the payoff to that question I asked at the start. Which one wins right now? On launch day benchmarks, Gemini 3 has the edge, and that's a real verifiable claim Google put its name on. But the honest answer for your life is, it depends on what you do all day. Heavy on documents, images, and Google tools? Gemini 3 makes a strong case. Deep in ChatGPT habits and third-party apps, or you just prefer how it writes? GPT 5.1 is far from beaten. The leaderboard flipped. Your workflow decides whether that flip actually matters to you. What should you watch for next? Two things. First, independent testers over the coming weeks, because that's when we find out if these scores hold up outside Google's own slides. Second, OpenAI's response, because a launch this loud almost always triggers a counterpunch, and that's when you get the real deals and upgrades. This race isn't slowing down, it's speeding up, and you're the one who benefits when it does. So the single biggest takeaway: stop asking which chatbot is best in general, and start asking which one is best for the thing in front of you. Test both on your real work and let the results pick the winner. If this helped you cut through the launch day noise, subscribe and stick around, because I break down every one of these AI face-offs the same way, in plain English, so you always know which tool to reach for. I'll see you in the next one.